Photojournalists can never be completely objective. And it's not just because we might be injecting our bias into our photos, but it has just as much to do with the way the people we're photographing respond to the presence of a camera. So just by the nature of what photojournalism is, we can't show you the way a person would act if there were no cameras present. We can only show you the way a person would act when there's a camera around. With a few exceptions, that's all we can ever really show you. I see this a lot in political photojournalism, and I noticed it when I was taking pictures for this story by Robert Jimison in the New York Times. So for this story, I photographed 3 different candidates who are running for the US House of Representatives here in Iowa, and there's one in particular who stood out to me, Representative Zach Nunn, who's running for re-election. Just to me, seemed to be a bit more camera aware than the other ones I photographed. And the other ones I photographed, I was also photographing them at like lively events where there was a lot going on. And so there's a lot more distracting them from the presence of a camera. But what made him seem a little bit more camera aware was that he was kind of touchy. So every person that he met, it seemed that he made a real point to touch them, to tap their shoulder, to embrace them, not just to shake their hands. And this might just be the way that he acts. This might just be a sort of campaign philosophy for him, that you go out and you meet your constituents, potential voters, and you physically touch them. But even if there was no performative component to this touching at all, it has the effect of making life a little bit easier for a lot of photographers who would want to photograph something like this. Because photographers aren't just looking for nice lighting and good compositions, we're looking for moments. And a photograph like this is much more compelling for a photographer than a photograph like this. There's just not really anything going on, they're just standing around. One of them has the moment, and the other doesn't really have a moment that would be hard to replicate. It just seemed to me that Representative Nunn was aware of this, and I think it would be impossible for him not to recognize the kind of symbiosis there as someone who has been on the campaign trail before, that moments of touching, reaching out, having like sort of more expressiveness with constituents just makes for better photographs. That's common sense. It's trickier for photojournalists, though, than it is for other photographers, because we don't want photos that are just good. We want photographs that are accurate, that are authentic. And this is reflected in the second point of the National Press Photographers Association's Code of Ethics, which is to resist being manipulated by staged photo opportunities. If a person is performing for the camera, especially if they're a politician, that's kind of a form of staging, and we're supposed to resist being manipulated by that. So I could resist to this person's way of like kind of staging their presence with these other voters by just never taking the picture when he like reaches out to someone and touches them. But the reality is, I don't actually know what's going on in his head. I don't know if he's performing this. But more importantly, I have to have a realistic understanding of what a photojournalist like me can deliver. And again, all that I can deliver is a representation of the way that people act when a camera is present. So yeah, he might be more touchy than usual when a camera is present, but that's part of reality too, and it doesn't make the photographs of that inaccurate necessarily. In the end, a photojournalist cannot deliver like surveillance level objectivity and accuracy of the people that we photograph. We can't offer perfect objectivity, but what we can offer is transparency. And that's why I make videos like this.